So now we should be live. So you should see it on Twitch in there's like a 10-15 seconds lag between live and Twitch. Okay, so yeah, we're there now.
Cool. Oh, good.
Yeah.
We're live.
We are live. How exciting. So normally I have also elevator music in the background, but because last time my computer died, so I'm trying now to figure out what was the cause of death. Was it the elevator music or was it just me? So yeah, but thank you so much for agreeing to come to our stream today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, today. So we have quite a bit of time difference. So here it's 6 o'clock. In San Francisco, it's
9 a.m.
It's 9 a.m. Yes.
Yeah.
So bright and early. And here I just finished a whole day of trying to figure React something else that was just not how it was not happy with me. But you know, we'll get there.
Sounds like programming.
But yeah, so today we wanted to talk about kind of how to get to being like a professional developer, but not coming from the CS kind of background. So both Anjana and I, we kind of had a similar path. So we'll discuss that. We'll also talk about Outreachy, which is a paid internship program. We'll talk about conferences and how to get better at public speaking. But also we want to encourage you to ask questions. So we have a chat room there. If at any point you're curious, you want to know more about something, just pop a question in. Sounds good? Good.
Sounds good to me.
So Anjana, would you just do like a quick 2 minutes? Who are you and what do you do as a developer today?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a software developer and developer advocate. So right now I work as a developer advocate for a company called Observable. We make a reactive visual programming environment for data science and data visualization and computational art and anything you can put your mind to. So I just started there recently. I've been working on that. And as you mentioned, I got into software development through a non-traditional path. So I do not have a degree in computer science. I studied philosophy as an undergraduate randomly. And I came to become a software developer through the field of linguistics. So I always loved foreign languages. I always loved learning about language and was a teacher of English as a foreign language for several years. And through that, I got really interested in computer-assisted language learning and in all of the ways that technology could help people teach and learn foreign languages. And so I ended up going back to grad school to study something called computational linguistics,
wow.
Which is a thing that I did not know existed until I went to go study it. It's basically a huge umbrella term that can include anything sort of at the intersection of computers and human language. So I personally was really interested in things like speech recognition, speech synthesis, also working on computer-assisted language learning applications of that technology, as I mentioned. And through that study, I found that I really enjoyed all of the code that I had to be writing to do the research that I was doing and to try to build the tools I wanted to see. So I kind of fell in love with code through that and got really curious about this whole software development thing, started learning more about it.
Yeah.
And I ended up at a place called the Recurse Center.
Okay. So you're not like, okay, you're covering too quickly too many things. So I'll just go back a little bit. So,
stop me, yeah.
Okay, so question number one first, just about your job. You said you're a developer advocate. What does the advocate do?
So a developer advocate, I mean, it's a broad title that can really include a lot of things. But the way I like to think of it is it's someone who is sort of a liaison between a product, usually a software product of some kind, and a community. So A community that's usually made up of developers. It doesn't have to be developers. It could also be designers or people who are just learning to code or whoever is part of the community. And a developer advocate essentially knows that community intimately because they are from that community. They're usually a developer, and or they've spent a lot of time around developers, and they help bridge the gaps, as it were. So they help the community understand this product. So there's maybe like teaching involved and explanation and demos and things like that. But then they also help advocate for the needs of the developers within the company. So try to make the product better based on the needs and experiences of developers who are using it.
Okay, so it's like your job is then like a mix of coding, learning, teaching, communicating, the whole shebang.
Bingo.
Wow. Okay, cool. Then back to your like career path. So I also did kind of went linguistic-y way. So I did also English and Mandarin Chinese. So I did that for ages, and I I lived in China for 5 years. I was also teaching English as a foreign language. I was teaching Chinese. And also I did Outreachy like you did. So that's quite, it's fun. But
a lot of similarities,
yeah, and also like I was very pleased. Like there was recently a study that came out from Nature magazine, I think, that said that, you know how they always said, to be good at programming you need to be really good at maths, and then which means like for people like me that were kind of like sucky at maths and stuff, I was like always staying away from that. But now just recently there was a study that said like actually linguistic skills are much more needed for when you learn computer language, because obviously it's just there is also a syntax, there's also rules, there's also a lot of logic like in a human language. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I don't know about more or less. Like, I think depending on what your interests are.
It was
like,
from Nature magazine.
Sorry?
It was from Nature magazine. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, obviously, like, it's really, really difficult to test. But, like, yeah, the idea is just that, I don't know, like, have you ever heard this argument that you need to be, you know, like, computer, like, coding is such a math-related, like, you need to do advanced algorithms and stuff to just solve your like basic CSS, I don't know, problem.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's this kind of intimidating aura around computers and programming that for a long time, you know, I think the culture of programming built up a lot of walls around itself, and kind of, because it was such a niche field for so long, it became this kind of like special in-group thing.
Yeah.
And now, as we're finding that computers are like, everyone has to do computers all the time, essentially to be able to fit into our economy. I mean, for better or worse, worse, I think. But that means that, you know, computing has to become more inclusive. It has to become wider, and it has. And so we see that, you know, there are people who do computers that are really deep in the mathematical and abstract weeds.
Yeah.
There are people who do it that are really deep in the maybe the visual side of things, right? Like front end and design and animations and things like that, or computer graphics. And then there are people doing all kinds of other stuff, right? Like there's like, the way that I got into it was through the linguistic side of things, the sort of human-computer interaction, natural language interfaces, things like that. And I think what we're finding is that really, it's not that like you need a certain background, whether it's math or linguistics or music is one I've heard a lot, or philosophy is another one that people say because of all the logic and everything. It's not like you need any of those backgrounds. It's like you need to find your sort of place in this huge community, in this huge industry. And I think there's a place for people with all different backgrounds, and ideally, to me, like for us all to get better at doing computers, because collectively we could all be a lot better at computers. The way to do that is for us all to learn from each other and share our different backgrounds and really celebrate that. And, you know, have like a team of somebody who's got a really strong math background, somebody who's got linguistics, somebody who's got visual arts and design, somebody who's got organizational systems or ecology or something like that. Because all of these fields have something to teach us as programmers, as software developers, software architects. So
yeah, most definitely. And
so yes to all of the above.
All of the above. And so for you, like, how did you get from learning how to like starting like to learn programming to Outreachy, so the internship. How was that? How long was that journey? And when did you know you were ready like to go for the internship?
So, my journey with computers was, like many people, sort of long and winding. I always enjoyed being on computers, and I was pretty fortunate to like have a computer in my house from a relatively early age. But I wouldn't really say that I was doing a lot of coding. I was doing things like, customizing Blogger templates and whatnot as a kid. But it wasn't until I started really getting interested in computational applications of linguistics, so computer-assisted language learning in my case, that I really started trying to learn how to code and, reading books, doing introductory exercises and things like Python. I learned Python first. And as I mentioned, I was in grad school, I was like finding out that I really like programming a lot and I liked software, and I found out about this place called the Recurse Center in New York City,
Right.
which is a really amazing space and community of people who are trying to get better at programming without any kind of curriculum or courses or teachers or anything like that. It's just a bunch of people who are in a very self-directed and independent way trying to dig into concepts or technologies or whatever it is that they're trying to learn and trying to support each other through that. So it's this really interesting program community. They call it like a programmer's retreat, like a writer's retreat,
Okay.
where you go off and you work on your craft for a while, but for coders instead of writers.
Okay.
And when I was there, I found it was just like such an amazing supportive community that was all about helping each other identify opportunities, and whether that was opportunities for new things that you could be learning or working on, or whether that was opportunities for things like jobs and internships. Everyone was just really great about supporting each other. And so it's through that community that I found out about Outreachy and that these internships existed, and that you could work on open source for like really cool organizations like Mozilla, where I ended up doing an internship, and they would pay you and you could be remote, which was really important to me because I was living in Germany actually at the time. And so wasn't able to do a lot of the kind of New York or US based internships that were available.
Yeah.
And it would just seemed amazing. So I applied when I was at the Recurse Center. This was like fall of 2015. And I did not get in. I applied and it didn't work out.
Drama, what? Really?
Yeah, I didn't get in. It was my first time doing a PR on GitHub, a pull request on GitHub, my first like code contribution. I made some really tiny changes to things, and I think my application wasn't really that strong because I couldn't really show a lot of engagement with the material. Like I had really just kind of sat down then and started looking at it, and I didn't really have a lot of like integration with the project to show that I had like been keeping an eye on it, been learning about it. This is what I learned so far. This is what I want to learn now. And so it didn't work out. I wasn't accepted that round. But Outreachy runs every 6 months. So 6 months later, I applied again. And this time I started my application much earlier.
Yeah.
I picked a project. I knew which organization I wanted to work with. And through that, I kind of narrowed down the projects that were available. It was at Mozilla. And I, this time, was able to really like engage a lot more with the project and with the code base and really dig in and have a bit more substantial contributions to show and have a little bit better of an understanding of the project and where it would go, and was able to talk about that, I think, in my application, and just got really lucky and ended up being accepted that round. So that's how I came to an Outreachy intern.
Yeah, no, that's like, so I also did a Mozilla Outreachy internship. This is just like, and like for me it was similar. Like I also feel like plug-in, I feel like it's like I keep telling people like you should just apply because people don't know about this, and that it's paid, because it's very difficult, I feel, like especially if you go in a self-studying route, like you're not a CS, a computer science graduate or a bootcamp graduate, like it's really difficult to know when you're ready, and it's really difficult to know like, oh, someone's gonna pay me to like, because I would just be happy to learn for free. But like to get into the whole someone is gonna pay me, which establishes this professional, like I'm a professional, people are paying me to do this, like it does like magic for your confidence and everything. So like for me it was also like I just like, okay, I will apply. If they think I'm ready, they will take me. If I'm not ready, they probably won't take me. And I did like a similar approach as you did. So for me it was because, so I did the beginner mistake in the beginning when I was jumping from like Python to JavaScript, like to databases, to like all these different things. And then at some point I was like, okay, like I'm too old to like learn everything. I will never like be able to know all of these things. I need to like kind of narrow it down to one thing. So I decided to do front-end JavaScript and React specifically. So when I was applying to Outreachy, I kind of like first filtered down, okay, these are the skills that I can do. And like I there was like 5 different projects. And I think because I had like maybe just two weeks to apply, because I found out quite late. So I just completely focused on one project and was like, this is the project I want. I will totally convince them that I'm cool and that I can do this. So I like researched, and I started talking to the mentor also. And I think that was like a big thing as well, because he was like, okay, maybe you don't know everything, obviously, because you're an intern, but I can see the communication is going to work because you're able to like, because obviously there was issues, and I was like ignoring all the code styles and like, what are you doing, like squash your commits and stuff, because I was just doing silly stuff. And they're like, okay, no, this is good, this is good effort, however, like you could do this and this and that. And they like, the feedback that I got was like they really appreciated that I was just able to like step away from like, this is not personally my fault, like I just don't know, and they're trying to make me a better programmer. So just like the whole, okay, yeah, good, but if you could do it like this, that would be perfect. So I think like if anyone else is considering the Outreachy internships, which like Anjana said happen every 6 months, you should definitely like choose your project, choose your stack, and then like really start communicating with the team. See if you like how they communicate, because some are remote, some are not, some use Slack, some use something else. So like try to find a project that suits you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think some of the feedback, so I think that feedback that you mentioned, getting up to being really receptive to feedback, being able to learn from that feedback, like that's something that mentors want to see. My mentor I was really lucky to have a great mentor, and also someone, so Maya Friedrikowski, my mentor at Mozilla, was actually an Outreachy alumna herself.
Oh, nice.
And an alumna of the Recurse Center. So
nice.
I think in terms of knowing when you're ready, like seeing someone like you who's like been through something that you've been through and is maybe like a few steps further down their journey, like that's really powerful, right? So seeing somebody that you can relate to. And so I was really lucky to get selected for this program, and what feedback I received on why I was chosen was that that they were able to have a lot of confidence that I would be able to complete the work independently. I think because I had been through a graduate degree, I had been working for many years, I had been I had a bit more life experience perhaps than I did when I was 18 and fresh out of high school or something like that, and also I was, I think, able with the instructions, which for this project were really great, really explicit and clear. I was able to take them and run with them in a sort of independent way. And so I think that demonstrating that, if anybody out there is like applying to Outreachy, I think demonstrating that you are able to do a lot of the figuring out of what needs to happen, and do a lot of the learning that you need to do, whether it's researching online, Stack Overflow, reading NDN, Mozilla Developer Network docs, whatever the thing is that you're working on, being able to show that you can do a lot independently, and that you're able to come to your mentor with like those questions when you do get stuck, and that you're able to listen to their responses and like grow from that feedback. I think that's those are some really strong things to show on your application if you can.
Yeah, and I think not just for like Outreachy or internships, it's for any job application,
Yeah.
especially like if you're looking to work remotely. So where it's, you know, like
Definitely.
there's so much trust, because so I work remotely now, and it's like there's no one that is like, there's no manager looking at you, there's no like office atmosphere, no one knows what you're really doing, and like to have the ability to kind of convey trust and responsibility, and that you'll be able to handle a bit of pressure and like prioritize and self-organize and things like that, I think are very, very, very important. And so it's not just like technical skills. And I think it's also something that, like you said, like if you're 18, like those are skills that you don't have at that age. Maybe you're well, okay, I didn't. Like
I didn't either.
when I was 18, like I
There
would
are
just
more mature 18-year-olds out there than I was.
exactly. But like if someone was to tell me like, oh, this is not okay, like PR rejected, I would be like, but this is like, what did I do? You know, like I feel, because like there's a lot of people that feel, you know, like, so I quit my job when I was 30 to start to learn how to program, and everyone's telling me, oh, you're so brave, like how did you just do it? And I think, okay, it's, yes, it's difficult, but actually the only thing you really need is discipline, and like just do it every day and keep going back to it, and like trying to figure out how you learn best, like which resources are best for you, trying to establish a network, things like that, which are things that you get better at as you are older, because you know yourself better, you are maybe more confident. There's like, just for me at least, like I have less glitches than, you know, like I'm more confident now, I'm more able to express myself, I'm more able to say no to things or convince people or communicate. So it's just something that I think kind of like you're never too old to learn this, and because every time, yeah, because you bring your life experience to the table as well, not just like,
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's sort of like what we were talking about earlier. It's like so much of software development is not sitting down and typing characters into a computer. It's you know, working with people. It's figuring out the needs, figuring out what people need rather than what they say that they want. You know, it's communicating, it's teaching, it's learning, it's describing what you're doing is almost more important than actually doing it, right? And so you know, I feel like once in a while I'll hear a conversation like, am I too old to go back and change careers? And I personally think it's absolutely never too late to change anything about your life that you want to change. And I think that, just like you said, you know, regardless of what your background is, regardless of what your job experience is or whatever lived experiences you have, you can bring those and bring them as like really valuable assets to the team that you're working on or to the project that you're working on. It's never a drawback that you didn't have a background in XYZ, because like whatever your background is, that's what makes you unique and makes you special and you like a valuable addition to the team. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
No. So, but then how did you get from, so Outreachy is 3 months, you do that, so how do you get from there to having a job?
Yeah, well, I think there's lots of routes. Some people end up getting a full-time job with the organization where they do their internship. I tried that. I applied to Mozilla. It didn't work out. I bombed a coding test with them. It was not good.
Me too.
Yeah. But so for me personally, my route to every job I've ever had in tech basically has been through talking about my work and things that I'm interested in. So I started doing public speaking actually before I even started my Outreachy internship. I think probably around when I was applying. I gave my first talk at a small tech conference, and for me that made a lot of sense, because I missed teaching when I started getting into computers, when I started sitting down and programming all day or sitting down in front of a computer all day. I really missed like being in a classroom full of people talking to people all day, getting excited and helping other people get excited about whatever the subject of the day was. And so speaking about computers made a lot of sense to me personally.
Yeah.
That's not the case for everybody. For some people, there might be other ways that communicating about your work makes more sense, like writing, blogging, or creating a lot of demos and sharing them on CodePen or Code Sandbox or something like that, or hosting a Twitch stream or whatever it is. And I think that for me, that it was speaking at conferences, and that really opened so many doors to me, because it's like this amazing life hack. It's like, instead of trying to go out there and find a bunch of people that are interested in doing the things that you want to do, that you can connect with, it's like you just go stand in a room and say, I like this, and see who comes up to you. And it's like, I was very fortunate to have that work out, but I think it's a really good way for like getting people to see what you're about, what you're into, and then the people who resonate with that will more easily be able to find you.
But
But
how do you, because I think it's very intimidating when you go to a tech conference as an intern or a junior developer, because you're like supposed to be the expert, and you're supposed to have a room full of people believe you that you know what you're talking about. I think you did FOSDEM as well as part of Outreachy. So I did that, and I just thought, I was why would they listen to me? Like, I've been working here for 3 months. But then my mentor said like, but you've been working on this project, on this thing that no one else has worked on. You're the most, this project the best, like this aspect of it, because I was working on accessibility. Like you are the one that implemented it. You are the one that had all these lessons learned. You are the one that can convey this, like no one else can do it. And he was right, like, because we think like, oh, you have to know everything, because be prepared for all the questions, because then it could be embarrassing and you might die. But it's actually, you can be like really specialized, and people also appreciate that, because I think there's also a bit of, I don't know, people kind of root for you when they see that you are like fresh and a bit nervous. I think there's tech community is very, very welcoming in that aspect. But how was like your first talk? And do you still get equally nervous when you have a presentation?
I get nervous every time. Every time I go on stage, I get really nervous. My anxiety curve, it like rises until, I guess I'm going the other way. It rises until like the moment that I open my mouth on stage, and then it plummets, and then I'm okay. As soon as I start talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, my first talk was at a conference called JS Unconf, which is an interesting format. It's this unconference format where instead of like usual conferences, you know who all the speakers are ahead of time, you know what they're talking about, it's all programmed out. At an unconference, the way it works is people get up in the morning in front of the room, and they have about 30 seconds or something to pitch a talk idea, something that they would like to talk about. And then everybody votes on which talks they want to see.
Nice.
So it's interesting because it's kind of a more like, I want to say like more egalitarian, because anybody in the audience could be a speaker later that day. And so it's kind of moving away from this whole, like, you have to be this, world-class expert, thought leader, 3 PhD, whatever, right, person, this magical wizard. It's not like that. It's just sort of like, the people that you were chatting with at lunch yesterday are like up on stage now today, something like that. So that was a really nice venue for me personally. And I have a real like kind of allergy to this whole expertise mindset that we have to listen to the people who, have like literally written the book on the subject. Yeah. I think that it's great to hear from subject matter experts and people who've spent, decades or spent their entire career, their entire lives in some cases, like digging into a particular subject matter so they know it so deeply and so intimately. But I think sometimes those people aren't the best people to explain concepts to a wider audience, because they're so close to the subject that it's sometimes hard to see like how a newcomer would relate to it. So I think especially for when you're talking about like a new technology or trying to explain some kind of complex concept, I think it can be really, really useful to hear that explained by someone who has just started working with it or just started digging their teeth into it. And so that was the position that I found myself in when I gave my first talk. It was about functional programming, which is something that I had never heard of until I went to the Recurse Center about 6 months before I gave this talk about functional programming. And so I was really, a beginner learning it for the first time. And I was able to talk about it in those terms of like, this was my first time interacting with this subject or with these concepts. This is what I found tricky about it. This is what I learned, or the ideas that made it click for me. And this is like, now let's all take it further together. This is something we can all kind of learn better together. So that's the approach I like to take, is like, I am not an expert in this, but I can nevertheless contribute something valuable to the conversation around it. And so can you, so can anybody.
So is that the talk that has like 1.3 million views on YouTube right now? So wait, so your first talk that you gave.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very strange, and the internet was very kind to me with that talk.
But that is like how I got to know about you, actually, because I was, I don't know, somewhere, probably Reddit or something. I read something about like the best talks, like talks that explain something really well. And there was your talk, and then there was the one about the call stack is also really good. I forgot the
event loop one.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are the two.
What the heck is the event loop? Yeah, great talk, amazing.
Yeah, but like your talk, like the first talk you gave is like, and
it was very strange. Yes, that was not.
The intention.
That's not typical. It's certainly not typical of any of my other talks. Like, that's the only one that happened with, and I honestly can't really explain it, except for the fact that I think functional programming in particular is one of these fields where there's this huge barrier to entry. There's this huge kind of gatekeeping thing around it culturally, of like, this is really difficult and you have to be super duper genius smart to understand it, which I hope by now it's made clear I don't think is true of any subject. Like, we can all understand anything if we try hard enough. But so I think that content that talked about functional programming in the way of like trying to break it down in super simple steps that anyone could understand was really beneficial. And I knew that because I basically, in that talk, I was really like channeling my mentor, the people I learned from at the Recurse Center, Mary Rose Cook, who had done that for me, had really broken it down in really simple concepts for me, because I, like I said, was just a super newbie to it. And so I tried to pass that on. And I think it resonated with people because we are hungry for more content like that, where we're taking these like things that are scary and big and, terrifying in the world of computing and bringing them back down to earth and making them beginner friendly. So that's the only analysis I've been able to come up with for it. It's just that we need more beginners talking about stuff.
No, it was amazing, like, because that is where I know what function currying is from your talk. You had a slide about function currying, which is just insane. Yeah, and like someone is asking if we can share resources at the end. I will definitely post a link to this talk so that we can pump it to 2 million views on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wow.
Beginner, intermediate resources. So I guess it depends on what you're trying to learn. I found when I was starting out with Python and JavaScript, there were some books that I found really helpful for Python. My first interaction with Python was there's an O'Reilly book series called Head First, and I think it was Head First Programming, which is done in Python. I found it really useful. And then when I started learning JavaScript, there's a really great book called Eloquent JavaScript, which is freely available online, and it's just amazing. Yeah, so
okay.
Those are some good ones. We can drop links in later.
Okay, good. Yeah.
And somebody else asked, how do we keep our energy levels so high? Just
success.
No, It's all an act. I'm gonna go take a nap after this because this is all I got for the whole day.
This is just in between the crying and like what is happening to the world.
No, but I will say that these kind of conversations are great because I really love. I get really excited about how much potential there is for beginners and for new folks with totally different backgrounds to like come into tech and to bring their experiences and their like unique way of looking at the world to computers so that we can make them all better. So that really like pumps me up. I get really excited about it, and I also get really excited about weird stuff like just the beautiful lambda calculus or some whatever concept like that if I think about it, I get really excited. It's just really cool. So that's all that it is. It's just really excited to talk to y'all about this stuff.
So find things that excite you and put them around you, and find people that are exciting and talk to them, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. Finding a community, and honestly, like for beginner intermediate learners, more than resources, more than books, more than courses on all the platforms that are available, I think the single most important thing you can do is like find a community that works for you, a community of people who can support you, who you can ask questions with, and who don't make you feel dumb for asking basic questions, who encourage you and who believe in you sometimes more than you believe in yourself. Like finding a community like that was the single biggest game changer for me, and like it made my career switch possible. Like for me, it was at the Recurse Center, and then everybody else that I met through that afterwards. And so I would say like that's the most important thing you can do is like find that community. There's lots online. There's like there's the Code Newbies community. There's the Free Code Camp and that whole community. There's Twitter can be great. Can be great.
Yeah, definitely, because I did the Free Code Camp, so that's also how I started. So for me it was, actually it's with Django Girls, so that's also the t-shirt. I went to the workshop and it was amazing, and then we had to like fly from Milton Keynes, which is a town close to London. I was living in the UK back then, and we flew to Belfast, and because that was the closest one, and we're like, oh, this is amazing, we need to do something like this where we live. And then we just kind of found some coaches. We put, because it's really easy to organize, like there's a website, you just put your event, people start applying, people come, you have the event, then you meet like a lot of cool coaches, because coaches are like people that volunteer people, like people that enjoy teaching you in their free time. They're just like amazing. So I learned, I also like, it kind of accelerated my own learning, because I was able to teach. So the first Django Girls, I was a student. The next one, I was the organizer, and then the one after, I was a coach. So it was like the same content but different approaches. And also, I am not a Python Django programmer by no means, but like there was like a lot of basic stuff as well, like explaining how the internet works and HTML, CSS, and databases and all that stuff. That is, I would totally recommend like what you said about finding your community, which right now is maybe a bit trickier because all the meetups are cancelled, and for me that was kind of like the easiest avenue. But like you said, there's Twitter, which has its ups and downs, but there's Twitch communities, there's Eventbrite events, there's a ton of stuff, there's university courses, there's Free Code Camp, which I did a lot of Free Code Camp as well. That is definitely question is, do you still have like a mentor, like a person that like, so when you're stuck, it could be like, so nothing to do with your work, but like career wise you have issues, so like a person that can advise you on your, maybe like help you with your career or something like that? Do you have someone like that?
I don't have a single mentor. I consider myself super fortunate through the last few years, I've been in the tech industry and going to a lot of events and meeting a lot of people. I've been really fortunate to build up a network of a kind of support system. And I think this is something really essential for like surviving in, any industry, but especially this one, and especially if you're from an underestimated minority in tech. Finding people who can support you in different ways, I think is really important. Also, because, no one person is gonna be able to be there for you 100% of the time. Like people have their own stuff going on. everybody's busy, and also everybody has their own unique angle on a problem. So the best thing you can do, I think, is to find people who can give you different perspectives and who could. So maybe I have a couple people in my network that I'll talk to a lot when I'm thinking about like which events to go to, or feeling a lot of burnout around going to too many events, or I want feedback or on talks that I'm about to give or things like that. So I have some really great friends I can go to for that. I have some people who I can ask for more kind of like job advice, like when it's time to move on to a new thing. I have people who I can ask more technical questions to, like maybe at work, people who I know I can go to if I don't understand this about this system, or I'm struggling with this technology. Like, I know you have experience in this. Can you help me out? Yeah. And I think like spreading that out. So there's a cool concept that I think I learned. There's a blog post by a woman named Lara Hogan who does like management consulting, where she describes building a manager Voltron. So I don't know if anybody remembers the show Voltron. It was like this animated show from my childhood, like it was on in the 80s, 90s, where it was a robot made up of smaller robots, okay, each of which was like a lion robot, and then they all merged together to form like a giant warrior robot.
Okay.
And with a big sword. Anyway. And so the idea is like you can have a really powerful like this like robot giant in your corner that's made up of all these different people who kind of bring different pieces of the puzzle. And I think that's a really like powerful model for it. I think it's trying to find different people who can help you with their unique perspective. It's just like building a team at work. You want like a diverse team to contribute different viewpoints to whatever the situation is. And similarly, like in your life, in your mentorship search, you want people to be able to bring different facets of their experience to help you put yours in context. So I think the more you can find that network and that like group of people, the more support you'll have, and the stronger you'll be able to be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. And so if you were, because I get a lot of questions about people applying for their first jobs, and right now obviously it's extra challenging, but if you were to offer advice on that, like how would you, if you were, let's say you just finished Outreachy and Mozilla for some reason did not take you, and you were to get to the first job, how would you go? And like there's no meetups, there's no conferences, how do you find a job?
So I think having being able to show like your unique voice and your take on a particular subject matter is really important. So for me, like I said, I had been giving talks, and I could show people like this is who I am, this is what I am interested in, and what I think, and how I think about it, how I talk about it. For a lot of other people, that might be in the form of a blog site that you maintain, that you have been writing articles about, just as you learn things, kind of explaining them to yourself or to your like a friend who maybe isn't as far along as you, or something like that. Yeah. Or just to your dog or whoever, and maybe for other people, again, it's like a portfolio of like projects that you've built. Anything that you can do to show like who you are and what your unique perspective is, I think is really powerful. So that, because when you are applying for a job and you send in your resume, it ends up on a stack of resumes, right? And it's really hard to differentiate yourself that way. So that's why it's always better if you can apply for jobs that you have some kind of connection to, whether it's like a person that you know, or whether it's you have some kind of personal connection to this product or to this company. Like, for example, for Mozilla, if even if I hadn't been accepted to Outreachy, through the application process, I already made contributions to those projects, because for Outreachy, you have to contribute before you apply, like as you are applying. It's part of the application, right? So I already had that to show, like, this is how I interact on a Bugzilla conversation. This is how I react to feedback. This is, these are my GitHub PRs and things like that. So, something like, as somebody mentioned, that open source contributions in GitHub is a good way to stand out. Yes, I think anything you can show about what you're interested in and what you've been working on is great. That said, it's, it's really hard. It takes a lot of time to do those things, and it's really tough if you're working another job because you haven't been able to find your first coding job yet, or if you have other responsibilities in your life. And so that's where I really think like a community is also a crucial part of the puzzle. Like having a bunch of really good PR conversations up on GitHub that you can reference people to, or having a bunch of blog posts is great. But if you have a community that you can lean on, and that you can ask for feedback on those, and that you can ask for continuous feedback as you're getting responses or not responses through your application process, like that's, I think, another key part of that balance. Because again, showing who you are is really important, and the people who surround you who know who you are, they'll be able to help you do that. So whether it's by having a really nice portfolio or what have you, or whether it's by getting out into the virtual community and showing that you're a part of it through those connections is, I think, an important part of that puzzle.
And speaking of finding your special voice and stack, did you not write a musical about
Guilty. Yes,
let's talk about that phase in your life.
So my former colleague and friend Natalia Margolis and we did a musical tech talk last year at a conference called Bang Bang Con, exclamation con, that's sort of affiliated with the Recurse Center, and it's a really interesting conference because they have always had an emphasis on what they call the joy, excitement, and surprise of programming. So it's always been a little bit more kind of, quirky and fun of an environment to talk about code. And this past year, they put out a call explicitly for talks. So it was really open-ended, and they said, whatever artistic expression thing you're thinking of, like, we're interested in seeing it. And so I don't know, one day I was on a plane and just like started rewriting some Disney lyrics to be about tail call optimization, which is an optimization for more performant recursion, or limitless recursion, basically. Anyway, I started rewriting some lyrics just kind of for fun. I was like, this actually maybe could be a thing. And lo and behold, we were really like, what are we doing right now? Like, are we really about to go on this stage and karaoke over some chiptune Disney songs? And then we did. And honestly, it was really fun because everybody was like singing along with us because they knew the melodies, and everybody was just like really excited to be able to have that kind of communal experience of all singing together. So I had a ton of fun. Natalia and I had a great time, and unfortunately, it's postponed because of the coronavirus crisis. But there is going to be next year a conference called Title of Conf that's going to be an entire day of musical tech talks. So stay tuned. 2021, Detroit. We're doing this conference that my friend Aisha Blake, we were talking about this at a conference a while back. She has a background in musical theater, and we were saying, wouldn't it be great if there was more of an intersection between musical theater and tech? Wouldn't that be fun? Maybe one day. And then we went and did this silly talk at Bang Bang Con, and Aisha took it and ran with it and was like, I'm going to put on a whole day of this, and awesome. It's going to happen. It's going to be great.
Okay, definitely, we'll be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
And so the hoodie that you're conveniently wearing.
Yes. My little, so this is a Mozilla TechSpeakers logo here. I don't know if folks can see. Mozilla has a group, like a posse, I don't know, gang of, no, we're not. We're a bunch of people who really like talking about computers and the open web in particular. And Mozilla has brought together a lot of really great people who enjoy getting out into their communities and talking and hosting meetups and helping other people do the same and running community events and things like that. And they support us by, well, first of all, bringing us all together, and also by we had some training in public speaking, some workshops and things like that to get better at public speaking, and also some kind of technical briefings and things like that to learn more about cutting edge things like web VR and AR and cool stuff that Mozilla is working on, and cool stuff in the just general open web space and web standards. And so it's a really cool program. It's usually there's applications open once a year. I think right now there's a bit of a pause on that because things are a little up in the air, as we all know.
Yeah.
But stay tuned for future iterations of the Mozilla TechSpeakers group. And if you see folks around, like once in-person events start happening again, or if you see folks on streams like this with this blue with the heart, like we're all there because we get really excited about talking about computers on the web. So
okay.
Come talk to us. Yeah.
And so if someone would ask you about how to get better at public speaking, and don't say do more public speaking. Is there a shortcut? Is there a hack? Is there
a shortcut?
Yeah,
sure. No, quit tech, become an English teacher, spend 4 years in front of a classroom trying to get people to care about grammar, and just kidding. That's how I did it. That's how I got
painful route. Yes,
talking to a room full of people is through teaching. But I think I don't think there's any shortcuts. Like I said, I get nervous every time. It's really hard every time to write a talk. I don't think there's a lot of shortcuts, but I do think that remembering, like you mentioned earlier, that people are on your side. People want to see you succeed. There's occasionally that one person in the audience who just wants to be a troll, but that's really the exception that proves the rule. Yeah. Most people, they want to hear what you have to say. They want to hear your experience. They want to hear your take on the matter, right? And so I think starting out, I do think that doing more public speaking is important, but starting out, it doesn't have to be at a big conference or at a meetup or something like that. It can be something as simple as you get on a video call with a friend and who maybe they are a programmer, maybe they're not, and you explain something that you're learning to them. Doing it, especially in a community or with people that you feel comfortable with, to start out is really great. And I think just getting used to articulating, physically speaking about what you do is it takes a lot of practice. It's like muscles, it's like your body has to learn to not want to vomit every time that happens. And so I think the more you can do to explain those ideas that you have and explain what you found difficult or what you learned that made it click, whether that's just to your rubber duck or rubber fox in my case on your desk, or whether it's to a friend or a couple of friends on a video call, or whether it's to a meetup whenever those happen again. I think all of those are great ways to just practice putting words in your mouth about computers. Yeah.
Yes, well said. Yeah, just don't practice with a cat because they are very, very judgy, as I've learned. So dogs are much better.
I can't speak to that, but yeah, you might find their attention span a little lacking too.
So how do you get? So let's say you get the first job, and you mentioned earlier about knowing when to move on, or because I feel. And now I think it's even more true that just getting your foot through the door, getting the first job, is just get any job kind of, that will prove already to not just to yourself but to the world that you are a professional. And then I think it's just the barrier immediately becomes lower. So in your case, so how did you know when to move on and start looking for another job?
You mean to change careers entirely, or once
once you were in tech? Yeah. Let's focus just on the tech. So
after an internship.
After internship, you got a job somewhere.
Mm-hmm. So I got a job working for a small company in Germany where I was living at the time, that was working on science research funding data. The company is called Uber Research, no affiliation with the taxi company.
Okay.
And yeah, I got that job because I ended up meeting my future boss, Akim Dama, who was like a great mentor for me. I met him at a conference, at a EuroPython conference, where I was up there talking about something, I think like Python bytecode or what have you, that I just was really excited about. I was like, let me nerd out about this in front of all of you for now. And you know, he saw that, he saw me mention that I lived in the part of Germany that he also lived in, and we started talking, and you know, ultimately it led to a job opportunity.
Okay.
And at the time I was finishing up my internship at Mozilla. I was applying for jobs at Mozilla, but that wasn't really working out apparently. And so I was starting to really see, you know, what other options I have out there. And my mentor at Mozilla, Maya, was really supportive, and she said, you know, like, if you have an option that you're excited about, if someone is coming to you with an opportunity that sounds really cool, and the job that he offered me was really cool. It was working on like a domain specific language, like building a domain specific language for querying this research data, which is an interesting project and not something that comes along a ton in my experience. So I was really interested in that because I love machine languages as well as human languages. And so like, you know, I was excited about it, and she was one of these Voltron type people who was supportive of that and said, you know, really, like, go pursue it. It won't close any doors for you. It won't, like, taking this one opportunity won't well, it doesn't mean that you have to do that for the rest of your life, or it doesn't mean that you can't ever do something else. So, you know, try it out, see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, you'll be that much more experienced to know what to do next. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of take the opportunities that come along. If you're excited about them, if you have an opportunity that just really doesn't feel right, really just feels like it would be a slog, or it would be, there's nothing in it that would grab you. Now, okay, all jobs are jobs, and they're all hard in ways, and they all involve work that you don't want to do. But ideally, there's like work that you do want to do in there. And so if you're not finding anything that gives you that spark, like, I think that's also an interesting time to kind of step back and say, like, why am I not excited about this? And I think there's a lot of stuff going around, like a lot of vibe going around, that you have to be a programmer or you have to get into software. And sometimes, you know, in the sense that everyone needs to get more comfortable with computers, like, because of how the economy is, that's true. But it doesn't mean you have to become a programmer. It doesn't mean you have to become a software developer. And so, like, if there's some other job that sounds really interesting to you, that's maybe adjacent, like being a user experience researcher, or being a designer, or being a product person at a tech company, like, whatever is like lighting your fire, whatever is getting you excited, like, go for it, follow it, and you can always do something else later. That's my opinion, and I say that from a position of, I've been really lucky to be able to have opportunities to think about. And I know I've been also in the situation of having no offers and not knowing, you know, what I'm going to do for the next month and whatnot. And I know it's really tough to hear that when you're in that space, that, like, oh, just follow your heart. But I really do think there's like an element of truth to it, because otherwise you're going to wear yourself down. You're going to wear yourself out. You're going to burn out. You're not going to want to go any further, and you're going to end up, you know, abandoning this pursuit of getting better at programming or getting better at technology or whatever it is. So I think really finding that, like, spark is important.
And how did you get from Germany to San Francisco?
I moved for a job. Among other things, there was a few life circumstances conspiring to make that the best choice for me personally at that time. But I moved to work at a company called Mapbox, where I was at for the last 2.5 years or so. And yeah, it was a really exciting opportunity. I also got through my then boss, or future boss, I guess, found my talks online, and that's how he reached out to me as well. Wow. And it was a job focused on helping the team learn and helping teach like technical skills through the engineering team, helping onboard new engineers and things like that. And it just sounded really, really like a great fusion of my interests in teaching and engineering. So, and I had lived in San Francisco before in a previous lifetime. I had lived in the Bay Area when I was younger. And so I was happy to have the chance to go back what felt like home and does feel like home. And so, and be, around old friends and things like that again. I'm, that's another reason I love speaking and traveling to conferences, because it means I still get to catch up with my friends in Europe occasionally, or at least I did.
Yeah.
And will again once the planes, start flying again. So so I moved back for that job and for just some personal reasons.
Okay, so last question.
Sure.
What do you? Because we've been I told you half an hour. We've been talking for an hour.
It's fine.
Okay.
Like I said, I get excited.
So how?
I have time for one more question. Yeah.
Okay, one more question. So how do you get from being a junior developer to not junior? And what does it mean to be not junior?
That is a great
Asking
question
for a friend.
that I think we could spend the rest of our lives wondering. I think it depends on the organization, how they qualify junior. Like some places there are no juniors and everyone is just an engineer, or some other places everyone is a senior engineer, period. So I personally don't put a lot of weight on those words on the title. But that said, they correspond to something in reality. So what is that thing? And I think it's a matter of how, whether you're focused on growing yourself or growing while you grow the team around you. And so I think as you're starting out, you're just learning the mechanics of how do I interact with this computer? How do I get this job done? How do I build the thing I need to build? And as you grow in your career, you start thinking also about okay, how do I build this one thing, but also make it easier for anybody else on my team who's building a similar thing in the future to do that? How do I, maybe it's documenting processes. How do I maybe automate some parts of this? How do I, maybe it's organizational stuff. I'm noticing that there's communication breakdowns around me on the team. How do I help fix those? How do I help other people on the team level up in the ways that I have been leveling up? How do we all do that together? And so I think as you start to move your focus from you and what's right in front of you to the bigger organization and the bigger team around you, and the bigger flow of information and of work around you in these teams and these organizations, that's when you start to exhibit more of the qualities that companies often collect under the label of a senior engineer or of a non-junior. So I think, thinking about your team and thinking about how you can help other people learn as you're learning yourself is a really great way to do that.
Such inspiring words. But I think I think 1 hour is a good time to finish and wrap up. Thank you so much for.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Because people don't know, but my approach to getting people on my streams is just ambush them on Twitter and say convincing things. But I think it's right now also because of all the events being cancelled, there's a lot of opportunities for this kind of connections and collaborations and stuff. So maybe
thank you very much for the chat. It's really great to be here, and hope.
Right. So last question: where can people find you and follow you?
Yeah, mostly on Twitter. My name, Anjana Vakil, is my Twitter handle, so pretty easy to find. And I'm on there. I mean, I'm also on GitHub and whatnot, but I don't really use that for socializing. I think I maybe have a LinkedIn profile, but I don't use that not on Facebook. I don't really use a lot of social media except Twitter. So
okay, so I just posted your amazing talk to the chat, and let me find talk. Do you talk? I find your thingy.
So I guess if there's other questions that anybody has, now's a good time for it. Anybody in the chat has any last questions, and otherwise I'll try to follow up and get those. We can get those links out for the various resources we mentioned, and for Outreachy.org. The Recurse Center, recurse.com.
Yeah, because I just saw that they are now, because it's a kind of like a physical location workshop type of thing, but now they're doing like an online something.
Yeah, yes? They've gone remote for now for this, as so many places and companies and organizations have. So they're holding the sessions the batches as they call them remotely for now, and you can read more about that on their site, recurse.com. Okay. And a lot of this stuff is linked in my Twitter bio anyway, so don't worry too much. You can always find it in there. Thanks so much for dropping those links in.
And cool. last question. Did you get your mechanical keyboard yet or no?
Oh, I did. It came. Ta-da!
Oh,
wireless. Yeah, it's a Keychron K2.
Yes.
Nice. I like the gray kind of neutral color scheme. I got like a neutrals and wood colors thing going on in my little fledgling home office. So yeah, this fits in nicely.
Yeah, it's so like I enjoy the clickety clackety. Like it's so yeah. Okay.
I'm still getting used to it. I think I got to retrain my fingers a little bit, but.
Oh, right, because it's the mapping. Oh, but you're on Linux.
No, just for like the reach is a little further, and just the touch typing. Yeah, I usually mostly I am on like a ThinkPad, and I really like the keyboard on those as well. Yeah. So it's nice, but I'm still getting used to that extra like centimeter or whatever that I need to reach. So thanks for the recommendations. And if y'all didn't see the episode of this with Cassidy Williams, you got to check that out if you want to.
Better than Netflix.
Keyboards, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thanks everybody who tuned in. And I'll see you on Twitter.
Bye.